This is the Become the Lion podcast. If you are aiming to become the top in your industry, not second, not above average, the top, then you have come to the right place. Become the Lion will provide you with weekly insights and motivation needed from our guests on how to escape the common herd that society lives in. If you're looking to change your life, then get ready. Welcome to Become the Lion.
Hi, this is Trevor and Nicholas from Become the Lion, and today on the show we have John Lee Dumas. And John, I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Trevor, I am fired up to be here, brother. Let's ignite.
John, when I was doing some research on you, I came across your website, and I like how you put your income for the month on the top. I wanted to ask you, after you pay your bills, after you pay, for the car, the house, you pay for the company, the money that you have left over, what do you do with that money? Do you invest it? Do you put it into real estate? Do you put it into stocks? Do you mind telling us a little bit about that for our audience?
Yeah, I will say I just did make a very sizable real estate investment. I moved to Puerto Rico with my girlfriend and business partner, and we purchased a home, which was a $2 million home, which I did pay for in cash. So that was a really big real estate investment that we made because, to be frank, I do like to invest. I come from a financial background. I used to work for John Hancock in corporate finance. And rightfully or wrongfully, because, nobody knows, but I just don't love where the market is right now. I've experienced a great bull run over the past 6-7 years. So I pulled my money out and I'm on the sideline. So I'm in a lot of cash. I was just sitting on a lot of cash. And I said, I can take a good chunk of that, invested it in a real estate property that we love. So we kind of bought our dream house. We live down there now. We host a lot of friends and family to come visit, which is a blast. And, if and when the market does correct, which it will, it's just, will it correct in a year, 10 years? 20 years, who knows? But when it does correct on some levels, I'll be looking to get back into the market and we'll see what happens.
I like that a lot, and I can feel it for myself because I'm an investor and I'm not trying to buy anything because it's just been going up thousands of points, especially since I just know there's going to be a correction one day soon, if not in a couple of years, and that's the time to buy.
So true.
I wanted to ask, why don't you think most people become wealthy?
I think most people don't become wealthy because they never educate themselves on what it takes to become wealthy or what it means to be wealthy. And the education's out there. There are some great books that we can talk about and that I would recommend, like Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mindset and Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I mean, all of these books kind of talk about the psychology of what it means to become rich, to become wealthy, which, by the way, can mean different things for sure. But I think a lot of people just don't educate themselves. We only have so much time, so much energy, and we only put so much effort into certain things. And a lot of people are directing it towards maybe friends or family or, their job or their career, whatever it might be. And that's all fine. But unfortunately, not enough people put a certain amount of their energy into learning what it takes and means to become wealthy. And therefore, they miss some great opportunities to both create and build wealth.
A lot of times, the saying, the rat race, a lot of times people don't get out of it. Do you happen to, when you get your money, do you put away a certain percentage before you even do anything else with the rest of the money?
Back when I was getting a salary paycheck, I did. And I actually, I'll never forget, I was working at John Hancock and I went in and they said, hey, you can allot a certain percentage of your salary to, the 401k plan that we have here. And they were just like, how much do you want? I was like, well, how much do most people do? And they're like, oh, like 3%, sometimes 5%. They're like, the crazy people do 10%. And I was like, I'm going to do 50%. And they were just like, what? Are you serious? And they literally had to run it up their chain of command because nobody had ever tried to do that before. But, I had spent 4 years in the Army. I had plenty of savings. I had no debt. So I was in an opportunity where I could do that. And I wanted to because I realized the benefit of putting my money in a Roth type format where I was able to put post-tax dollars into a retirement account that when it was withdrawn, at age 63 or 65, there would be no further taxes on all that money that's been accumulated and the money that was made from that money over the investments over the years. So I wanted to get as much money as possible into that and max out as soon as possible. And sure enough, they came back and they said, you know what, actually the max is 50%, but you can put in 50%. So they let me do it. And every single pay period, every 2 weeks, half of my paycheck, literally, I would just see it right on my pay stub, would go into that retirement account, and I would, make do with the other half. And if I had to dip into my savings, I'd do that, knowing that I was doing the right thing, maxing out my retirement account first and foremost. And that was what I did back when I, had that quote unquote salary. Now, fast forward to where I'm at now, where my income, could be, $210,000 one month, $100,000 the next month. I had February of 2016, we had a 500,000 month. So to really allocate a percentage for me doesn't work. All I can answer now is I put as much as possible. I just pay the bills. I invest in my business, and whatever's left over just goes into my savings. And I want to see that chart, grow, because I chart my numbers. I have an account with Personal Capital where all my accounts are connected to it, so I can see, the graph of my overall net worth. And if it's not going up and to the right for, a significant amount of any given month, I know something's wrong.
John, I wanted to ask, our audience, is pretty much a younger audience. They could be in high school or college, coming out of college. What advice would you give to someone who's coming out of college? This is the first time that they're making pretty good money in their life. How would you tell them to spend that money?
Well, you're going to hear this because this is very common advice, but it's advice you need to know and you need to realize, and that's start now. We think at 20 we're going to live forever, and this is the reality. You're going to snap your fingers and you're going to be 50 years old, and you're going to think that you can always, just start investing next year or saving next year, and it just never happens for most people. And so that's why, you've seen the numbers. I'm sure you've shared some statistics on, what your average person has right now that's about to retire, and it's scary. It's scary, scary, because if you can just take, 10% of what you make every single month right now and have it be automatically deducted, so you don't even see it, you don't even think about it, and it goes into a protected account, hopefully some kind of like Roth setup where you're paying taxes now, but then that money will never have taxes paid on again. If you're doing that, then you're going to be shocked at how that money compounds 10, 20, 30 years down the line. It might not seem like a lot now, and it might not be a lot now, and that's fine, but it's what the compound is going to do years, decades down the road.
You can even look at, Warren Buffett and the snowball effect, how it just compounds over and over so many different years, and how he's been able to grow his money so quickly.
You have to start now. Now.
John, are you for or against credit cards?
I think credit cards play a role in our society. Unfortunately, I just think, just like I shared at the beginning, that people use credit cards that don't understand wealth. They don't understand how to build wealth and how to use wealth. I mean, credit cards work for me because I have great credit card reward plans where I get money back on money that I'm going to spend anyways. And I don't spend more money because of credit cards. I just spend the money that I would spend on a credit card with a reward, and I get thousands of dollars back a month that I wouldn't if I was just using a debit card, if I was just writing checks. So there's benefits to it if you do it right. A lot of people just get into problems with credit cards because they pay for things with money they don't have. Like, I've never paid for something that I didn't also have the money in the bank to cover that. I don't go into debt. I don't believe in debt. I think debt is something that just crushes people. That's why, frankly, I don't really believe in traditional education when it comes to college and postgraduate school. Like, if you're going to become a doctor, if you're going to become a dentist, if you're going to become one of those specialized fields, yes, you have to go to secondary school and you have to go into debt. I understand that. But if you're not, don't go to school. Don't get your PhD in literature to become a writer. You just need to write. You just need to write. You don't need to go into more debt. So I stay away from debt with a 10-foot pole. I think it cripples most millennials in our society right now, which is really sad, and stops them from allowing to do great things. Like, if I was crippled with debt, Trevor, I would not have been able to launch EO Fire. And that's brought me to the multi-millionaire status that I'm at now. I'd still be a slave to some company, to some salary, if I had been saddled with debt.
No, I like that. I really like that. And do you purchase or lease cars?
So I go both ways on this because leasing is so cheap these days. Like when I was in San Diego, frankly, I knew that we were going to be moving around a lot. I didn't want to be owning a car because, we moved to Puerto Rico and I wasn't going to take my car to Puerto Rico because that's stupidly expensive. Like I get into those details, but the import taxes alone are crazy. So we leased a Mazda 3 for $197 a month. I mean, that was unbelievable. It was $197 a month. We were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. I could afford it, a crazy lease. I could have done anything. It just made sense for us at that point in time in our lives to lease a car. And then when the 3 years were up, we turned the car in and then we moved to Puerto Rico. And when we got to Puerto Rico, we looked around and it made sense to buy. So I bought for cash, the car that we currently have right now, which is a Hyundai Santa Fe. It's a 7-seater. It's an SUV. It's a great car that allows me to drive around and to pick up stuff for our house. And when we have family visits, to have everybody in one car, like it's a great car for what we have. And I paid for it in cash and we own it. And that's nice. So there's just a lot of things I think you need to think about. I don't think there's any right answer for all people. I think you look at your individual situation and the timing of your life and decide what's best for you.
Do you think it's better to rent your entire life, rent a house, or do you think it's better to just buy a house?
I think it's better to rent. I'm a huge believer in renting. I think that we've been sold a crock of crap that the quote unquote American dream is to own a house. All a house is an anchor. It's keeping you somewhere. So if you have an opportunity to go get a better job somewhere else, you're anchored to that house. If you have an opportunity to, just stop having to live in your area because you're location independent because of your job, maybe then you can't just get up and move to Puerto Rico like I did because we rented forever. And it gave us flexibility to move from Maine to San Diego to this, to that, and we rented conservatively. And it allowed me, I wasn't paying these crazy property taxes and I wasn't having to, be this, people are just like, well, if you own a house and you move away, you can rent that house out. I don't want to be an absentee landlord. Like that's a pain in the arse. And I can speak from experience because I have been there. I have done that. I'm 37 years old. I've done it all. I've owned, I've rented. And I'm a big believer that until you are 100% positive that you are going to live in one area for 20 plus years, then and only then does it make sense to think about owning a home, but not until then.
John, let's say you're a first-time investor, someone who has a couple $1,000s to put into the market. What would you recommend that they put the money in? Would it be, index funds, mutual funds, REITs? What would you suggest for them?
I think it would probably be better, honestly, to take that money and invest in themselves and to say, hey, how can I invest in my education, my personal education, not again going to traditional schooling, which I don't believe in, but going to things online and maybe investing in a course to learn how to code if that excites you, or to learn how to design a website if that excites you, or to learn how to podcast. Investing in yourself, I think, is always the best thing to do for younger people that have a couple extra $1,000s. But if it's just strictly going to go into the markets, then yeah, I'm a big index fund guy. I believe spreading yourself out and diversifying and then dollar cost averaging into that index fund is the best way to go.
John, do you happen to have a few books that you could recommend for our audience to read on financial intelligence?
Yeah, the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is big because a lot of people don't realize that you have this subconscious mindset that in a way is scared of being rich, whether you know it or not. Like I didn't know that I had it. Most people don't. And this book is into the details and the psychology why a lot of people sabotage themselves on the road to wealth. And it's really sad. But this book kind of unveils some really cool things that can be a big help. So that, The Millionaire Next Door, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One book that I'll recommend very strongly for anybody that's getting into business for themselves, like an entrepreneur, is a book by Michael Michalowicz called Profit First. And that's my final recommendation.
And John, I'd just like to say thank you so much today for taking the time to speak with our audience.
Trevor, appreciate it, brother. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Become the Lion. Everything from today's show will be in our show notes on our website. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Till next week, don't stop grinding.